Hey, my name is Jesse. I'm from the Bay Area in California. I like to flip furniture, and I found this. I primarily work with discarded, damaged furniture. This one just seems like it has a lot of damage to the veneer. I could probably fix some of that. I'm not entirely sure what I'm getting into, but it seems pretty solid. Oh, there's an envelope back here. There's no money or anthrax in it. I found this dresser on the curb in Mountain View, and I had to carry it a bit, but it was way too heavy. I don't know what this dresser's made out of, so I had to just flip it end over end till I got it to my car. Right here, a piece of the backboard is missing, so I had to put some screws at an angle just to keep that from wiggling around, and then there's some nails sticking out from that piece missing, so I had to hammer those down, and then just put a couple nails on the other side to secure it better. And I gotta remove this old hardware, no big deal, but there's like this black boogery substance. I don't know what it is. It's kind of gross, and it tasted awful. Would not recommend. So I got cut a couple times on this project, both times off camera. I did not see these tiny little nails. I found them with my hand when I was holding this thing, so that cut my palm a little bit. But then I realized that this trim on all the drawers is incomplete, and it has these little nails that stick out, and all the drawers are like this, so I have to remove this trim from all the drawers. So that just added several hours of work to my project. And that's what happens when you pick up furniture from the curb. And I'm just casually using my chisel to pry up these little strips of wood. I couldn't find the exact moment that it happened, but I end up putting that chisel right into my forearm. See right here, there's no band-aid, but then in a little bit you'll see that I'm bandaged up. I left a pretty thick scar, so now I have a rule. I'm going to clamp anything I'm going to use a chisel on, instead of holding the item with my left hand. Lesson learned there, I guess. So I've been doing this YouTube channel for a little over a year at this point, and I've been doing a lot of different furniture projects, trying to do little unique stuff to them. But this one's a little different. A lady who had bought one of my dressers earlier this year asked me if I can make her a dresser where she can use it for a changing table. She has a baby on the way, and she's this really nice lady in this huge house in Los Altos. I thought this could be a turning point in my furniture flipping. So I said, how about this dresser? And she said, here's my colors, go ahead and work on it, and then send me pictures when you're done. Those colors she sent me kind of dictated how I was going to do this dresser, but that's okay, because this means that now high-end clients are pursuing me, and that seems like a pretty good thing to have happen. And back to this drawer, I'm just using some wood glue and sawdust to fill in the little parts of the drawer face that ripped out when I took off the little strips. I'll clean it up later. And right here it looks like the veneer on the dresser was broken, and they tried to fill it in with like rubber cement or epoxy or I don't know what. It was really rubbery and very mysterious, so I ended up finding it on a couple other spots. I had another piece of furniture that I left out in the rain, and the veneer just peeled off of it, so I tried to use that to patch up this spot. I've never actually done veneer work before, so this is my first time. It's just all part of the learning process, I guess. Right here there's missing veneer, and they just stained over it, and there's new damages that I must have done when I was flipping this thing to get it to my car. And as you can see, now I am carefully using my chisel. I'm just going to remove this layer of veneer very smoothly. And here's some more of that rubbery clear stuff. I don't know what it is. It's hard to get out. I just need to get this spot flat, and then I'm going to put the veneer on there so the grain matches the same direction as the rest of the veneer. When I had situations like this, I used to just remove the whole strip of veneer and then just sand and stain the wood underneath. And that's not great, but it came out okay sometimes. See, this rubbery stuff was really hard to get off. It was really frustrating. And then I left this spot unpatched because I ran out of clean veneer. And on the other side, on the top of the dresser, there was damage that went deeper than the veneer. And it looks like someone had just stained over the damaged wood. So I'm just going to take out a whole chunk of it and put another block of wood over it. There was just some deep scratches in the top of the dresser I'm filling up with wood glue and sawdust. I'm sure I made some of these scratches when I transported this thing on the sidewalk. And now the glue that I put on the drawer face is dry, so I can sand that away and make it look clean. But now you can clearly see there's a band-aid on my arm. I couldn't find the part of the video where I cut myself, but for the remainder of this project, I think you'll see band-aids on my arm. And in future videos, I think I have just a weird scar on my arm. I'm going to softly hand sand the edges of this drawer face. On a previous project, I used the orbital sander to get the edges here, and I really messed up the veneer. It just chipped off, so it just takes me a minute to get tired of hand sanding and going back to the orbital. The back ends of all these drawer tracks need to be secured, so I'm using little finishing nails to put them in place. But this middle drawer, I keep dropping the nail, and it took me like 3 or 4 tries to get it right. It's a really deep dresser. It would have been easier to just take the back off. So in this one, you can see me actually put the nail in. I don't know what people do to get the drawer tracks off, but every dresser I get has something like that. And the bottom of this leg has some nails put in weird spots, so I gotta work them out and punch this one all the way in. And it looks like this veneer needs to be glued down properly. Whenever I refinish old antique looking dressers, I like for them to have some blemishes still. They just like leave little dark spots that show that it's been worn out and used quite a bit. It's like I want it sturdy and smooth to the touch, but to look a little rough, but look good rough. The veneer on this leg was not coming up, but I just wanted to fill in all these little cracks that it had. And now to get back to all those veneer patches that I did. So it's a good sign that the tape didn't just pull off the veneer, so that's good. And we'll see how close the color is when I sand the whole thing. I'm just going to cut down this here patch. It's a piece of oak from like a pallet or something. First I'll hit it with the belt sander, and then I'll get it with that orbital sander there. I really like the way the wood grain came out on the drawer faces, so I'm really hoping that it comes out that nice on this top of the dresser. When refurbishing found furniture, you rely on a lot of optimism. I had to go over this thing a couple times to get all these little scratches out. And see, that's part of the optimism, where I want to be able to sand something and it just comes back to life. You know, I want it to be solid wood, and I don't want it to be very stinky. And I want it to challenge me, but without breaking me, like just the right amount of challenge. And I want to find the right home for that piece. Right here is a nail under the veneer, so it's just going to be exposed once I sand. But when it comes to refurbishing found furniture, there's just a lot of variables that you don't quite know. Like from afar, this piece has a lot of potential, and then will it still retain that potential once I bring it home? And typically for myself, I try new things whenever I do a project. So if I'm being honest, I ask myself, can I do this? I don't know. Let's give it a shot. So I guess if I was like a professional at this and very certain of everything, it wouldn't be very fun for me. So I guess the only thing that is certain is that I'm going to try something. We'll just see how they all turn out. I didn't perfectly sand the sides because I was just going to paint over these anyway. And this can is almost finished. It's just like an off-white cream color. I'm just using it for like the first coat. I'm going to do a slightly different color for a second coat. And I probably should have just sanded better because all those dark spots end up showing up through this thing. I'm planning on doing other coats anyway, but still I just made more work, I think. And as usual, I'm using a paintbrush that I got from the dollar store nearby. And I'm using some discarded Oops paint from Home Depot. Just trying to show that this kind of work can be done on a very, very slim budget. I have some cans of oil-based stain and polyurethane. I'll try to use them on multiple projects to get my money's worth out of them. And staining this would have got all the wood to look somewhat similar, but the client requested that I stay away from harsh chemicals and keep the wood a light color. So I went out and got a can of water-based polyurethane. I usually use this just on painted stuff, so that way it doesn't change the color of the paint I pick, and it keeps the wood a lighter color. But for this one, it kind of makes it look pink. I think that's because the previous stain was such a dark red that it still like tints the clear polyurethane. So staining it a darker color would have been, I think, better. I was just trying to accommodate the client's request, not knowing that the veneer was going to turn this color. And I think it looks fine. It's just not exactly what I had expected. And what was making me think that the previous stain was tinting this clear coat pink was that the drips that came over into the white part came out pink. Normally they'd be very clear or just slightly cream colored. But that's alright because I plan on going over this whole thing again with the slightly darker tan. Some people use primer when they paint furniture. I just use 1 or 2 coats of these Oops paints, and that is way more cost efficient. You see that sticker on the can that I'm showing? It says reduced, and the price is $2. That is really cheap. And we like having some color in our furniture. It brings a little bit of color into the room. This is one of the colors that the client requested. And I think with a good sanding, the paint sticks to the wood just fine. So like with some sandpaper and cheap paint, that optimism can go a long way. And I thought that this tan paint felt a little thicker, and then eventually I figured out that it's actually exterior paint. So I think normally that's more expensive. And some water dripped onto this drawer face, and it made that little watermark that was pink. And I'm just going to touch up these other 2 drawers real quick. And before I put the clear coat on these drawer faces, I'm going to put a second coat on the dresser top here. It felt a little thin and weak, so hopefully a second coat will beef it up. So this looks kind of dark while it's wet, but it really lightens up once it dries. I'm trying to be careful to not cross the line with this clear coat because it'll put that pink tint onto the painted part. After I get the whole thing clear coated, I don't have to worry about it transferring pink tint anywhere. The glue from the tape left a little line there. It looks like it gave the dresser tan lines. I love the grain on these drawer faces. I'll preserve that with this clear coat. One coat should do it because it's not a surface that you put things on. I really enjoy putting the clear coat on drawers like this. I put the brush strokes so that they match the wood grain. This is like the most zen thing that I do. Like, I do this to sell furniture, but I just really enjoy doing it. I would probably do this for free if I didn't sometimes need money. And this is the last drawer. The next step is putting clear coat over the painted area. And if you put this on evenly, it should dry crystal clear. I've had instances where it doesn't go on evenly and I end up with like these beige blotches. And then I have to just lie to myself and tell me that no one notices, but I'm sure that they do and they just don't say anything. I don't know. And then I spilt about $16 worth of water-based polyurethane. It was right at the end, so I finished, but it still sucked. And then I use a bottle of Brasso to clean up these drawer pulls. I got this one bottle for pretty cheap, and then I use it for several projects, so it's a pretty cost-effective product. I'm not sure if I should be using like a cloth or a brush. I just use this sponge and it's been doing fine, I think. I probably need to improve this process. And these are from the top drawers. They were a little smaller than the other drawer pulls. And this drawer had some like paper that was stuck in there and I could not get it out. I used soap and I used a scraper. It still was just stuck in the grain and I didn't want to sand it. I just go ahead and scrub all the drawers. They were all a little bit sticky and dusty, like dirt stuck in there. So I just wiped them down with some soapy water and then dried them out with a towel. These drawers are pretty big, but it seems like pretty high quality lumber. I mean, that looks pretty handsome there. You could store some fancy shirts and cover buns or something. When I was a kid, my skater friends used to put wax on like rails and curbs for grinding, and that made things really slippery. So I've been trying to put that on some of these old wooden dressers, and I don't know if it actually helps, but I've been trying to do it. So this dresser is missing some of the drawer pulls, and I couldn't find any online that matched. And these particular ones had holes that were too close set together, so they didn't match up with anything they had at the hardware store, and I didn't want to drill new holes. So I just kept the brass looking drawer pulls on the top, and I put these black ones on all the bigger drawers. I try to make it look intentional. I don't know if it just looks rookie. And let me know what you think about that in the comments. I've done this in the past where the top drawers get a different kind of drawer pull than the rest of the dresser, and it usually looks better than this, I think. I was kind of undecided on the way this came out. So I'm not quite finished yet. I need to put some blocks behind some of the drawers. But for the most part, this dresser's done, and as you can see, the wood came out a little bit red, and this client did not like that. I thought it was perfect for what she had described she wanted, but that's okay. I was able to sell it to some young guys who lived really close to me. They paid for me to deliver it to them, and it was like a few minutes from my house. So that was pretty cool, but it wasn't this breakout success like I had hoped. It's still a cool looking vintage dresser, and I have an alternate dresser ready for that lady in case she didn't like this one. We'll get to that in a couple videos. There's that little patch there. I wish I had stained it. I like the look of all the filler and scratches. They came out real smooth. Well, I hope you guys are taking on projects yourselves. Go ahead and make some cool stuff, please. Thanks for watching. I hope you had a good time.